I definitely want to make sure it's working. Wait a moment and then go live. Okay, I want to make sure it's working on LinkedIn, friends. Bear with me. I saw a little error message pop up.
Uh-oh.
All right. So the LinkedIn may not be working, but that's cool. The folks on YouTube, the folks on Facebook, thrilled that you're here. So I've got another great guest, and I love that I've been doing these live interviews. But without any further delay, I want to now introduce today's guest. Today's guest is on a mission to empower purpose-driven women service entrepreneurs. She guides women in building strategic networks that lead to referrals, collaboration, visibility, and perhaps most importantly, fun. Her work extends to female founders, helping them connect and grow through authentic connection strategies and private membership communities. She firmly believes that strategic networks open doors and provide a competitive edge in business. Her goal is simple yet profound, ensuring that women entrepreneurs get connected in a way that feels both great and authentic to them, all from the comfort of their homes. As the host of the Ravel Radio podcast, she has dedicated her life to creating communities and forging strategic partnerships. Her fascination with human behavior and personality science and her psychology background give her a unique perspective. By fostering online communities like the Ravel Collective, she helps women solve problems together, believing that magical things happen when women unite with purpose. Please join me in welcoming Cara Steinmann. Welcome.
Thanks, Robbie. Good to be here.
Thrilled to have you on here. And as you know, it's a show about building strong networks, and the context is leadership. So tell me, how do you define leadership, and when did you realize you had the skills to lead?
Leadership's actually a little bit of a trigger word for me because I think when I was younger, I was told that I was bossy and that I couldn't always be in charge. And so when I became an adult, one of my girlfriends and I were on the phone and she was like, she said something about me being a leader. And I was like, oh. And then I was like, whoa, what was that? And so I kind of started to examine that a little bit and realized that even though I was totally a leader when I was a kid, my mom was always like, oh, you're such a leader. I grew up not really feeling like one, like I was entitled to call myself that. So still working on that. But I think I would define it as being invested in some kind of change. Like you are taking the lead on something. You're doing something that you think needs to be done, or making some kind of change that you want to see happen.
Yeah, I love that. And the downside for little girls listening and their moms listening is that whole bossy thing. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's still here. And
For sure.
I have a soon to be 6-year-old daughter, and
Oh.
yeah, I think that, figuring out like who she's getting advice from in her little friend group. There's always one kid that like really, she comes home and tells me off the bus, like, I wasn't allowed to eat Halloween candy at school. What?
Like who said?
It was a friend. And I said, that might be a rule for her family. And different families have different rules, and we know
Yeah.
that. But I put it in your snack bag.
I said you can eat candy.
She was like, "Oh, I'm gonna eat it when I get home then, and tomorrow I'm gonna tell her." I'm like, "No, you don't have to tell her anything because that's a rule for her family." But like, because I don't want her to become the kid who, yeah. So
Right.
it is such a tricky line because I want her to have a voice, I want her to have a backbone. All
Yeah.
that is really important as she grows up in this world. But that label of bossy, like, kind of puts kids in their, well, girls in their place, because no little boy is ever going to be called bossy.
Yeah.
But for you to then rise sort of beyond that, like minimizing label, and start to claim, I'm here to help direct people in a path forward that feels right to us.
Yeah.
That's great. When did that start to kind of come to be for you? Like, what was the realization that helped you kind of start to see you had some of that skill set?
I think COVID helped a lot because I was forced to sit still long enough to actually kind of like marinate in some of the feelings that were happening around entrepreneurship and, changes that I wanted to see that just weren't happening. And, that being forced to sit still kind of gives you time to look at your life. And I mean, that happened to a lot of people during COVID. So
Mhm.
it was it was a good thing and, also difficult. But I think at that point in time, I had started to feel like I was isolating a lot before COVID even because I felt different. I felt like I didn't really fit into an entrepreneur's mold. Like I'm very casual, I'm very flip-flops and hoodies, and I don't feel like networking in person has always been terribly anxiety ridden for me. I hated it. And so when everybody wanted to hop on Zoom during COVID, I was like, yeah, that sounds great. I don't have to get dressed up and go anywhere and pretend to have small talk with people.
Yeah.
So
I definitely
Yeah.
want to dig more into that aspect because that's totally up my alley. That's like
Yeah.
Elaine,
I was
software
hoping we could talk
differential
about that.
programming. Oh yeah, we'll get into that. But I kind of want to know who you were as a kid because, like, as I've done this show, sometimes you've always been who you are, and sometimes people do have those epiphany moments that changes the shy kid to like the bold leader growing up. So how were you showing up like on the playground? Were you the one helping connect and organize your friends? Did you run for student office? Were you part of school activities and clubs? Like, did teachers witness your leadership and want to push you forward, or were you kind of the quiet kid with a book sitting off to the side?
I was not the quiet kid sitting off to the side. That happened later when so I'm neurodivergent, which I didn't realize until just recently. And I think that made me extra loud and extra opinionated. And I was always coordinating. There's actually a really funny story. My mom started getting calls in third grade one day, all these parents wanting to know how like why their kids were being asked to bring $20 to school for a Disneyland trip. And we were living in Canada at the time. And I had somehow gotten in my math is not my strong suit, gotten in my head that for if everybody pitched in $20, we could all go to Disneyland. So I was always building clubs and bringing people together and stuff. But I think somewhere along the way, my way of being didn't fit with what was expected of me. And so I adapted and I masked and I changed and became quiet and pliable. And um, I think a lot of things can contribute to that. Maybe having a little bit of a traumatic childhood and expectations, societal expectations, and the patriarchy and capitalism and all that stuff. So, from a very bossy, in your face, determined, knows exactly what she wants kid who's not afraid to say or do anything to an adult woman who's a little more timid and a little afraid to fail and afraid to be judged and really just wants to belong. That was a pretty quick road. So I think by the time it was time to I never joined leadership or anything like that in high school. By the time it was time to go out for that kind of stuff, I was hiding in a book.
It's interesting because you have almost the inverse experience of a lot of people because when you didn't know better, when you didn't know the repercussions of your actions, you were way more who you were. You were
Yeah.
you. And when that stopped feeling like that was getting you what you wanted and sort of getting more of the negative attention, and you decided like to try to mold yourself and mask into those
Yeah.
expectations that were being put on you. And did that help you get through that experience? Because you got to do what you got to do, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I think so. I think it was the only option at the time. Um, and in employment situations, I had to especially change because they won't, you're supposed to do what you're told and you're supposed to do your job and don't ask questions and just, and I'm always questioning everything. And I'm always like, well, maybe there's a better way. And I'm really not suited for most employee type jobs. And so I really had to, just box it up.
mhm,
And so I love being an entrepreneur because I can change my mind. I can make mistakes. I can do what I want. I can, question everything.
yeah,
And I don't get in trouble for it.
right. Well, because it's you, right?
Yeah.
It's an extension of who you are. When you were, I don't know, around 12 years old, did you have a sense of what you were going to be when you grew up? Was there a path in front of you that someone else made, or one that you were thinking of?
I think I always wanted to be like a writer. I always loved writing. And so I still, I did end up being a writer. I wrote fitness content and marketing for a long time, but I don't know that I ever wanted to be like a doctor. Well, I did want to be a doctor for a minute. I thought that would be really cool, but the math was a lot, like I said. That was
Yeah.
no. I just am interested in people. I've always been fascinated by people and like why they do what they do and why they are the way they are and like why do some people connect and some people don't really they have a hard time and I don't know, I just always wanted to just be fascinated by people and have that be enough.
Did you have a sense that any of that was going to lead to a job that would pay a living wage? Like, did you know writers? Did you know people who worked with
No,
like,
I
in
didn't have
psychology?
any no, I didn't have any like expanders or any kind of people who actually got paid. In fact, like my dad was always really supportive and he was like, I don't know how you're going to get paid, but go for it. So, I
That's
mean,
great.
digital marketing helped with that. You could get paid to write, but
Mhm,
there again, that was actually not a great thing for me necessarily because I was writing in other people's voices. And
mhm.
so I just hit a point recently where I was like, I really wanted to write for myself. And I realized I couldn't like sit down and write in my own voice anymore after years of, SEO and learning, copywriting strategies and all these things and taking on clients' voices. I was like, where's my voice in all of this now? So that's been kind of part of the peeling back experience also is kind of getting back to what my voice is.
That reminds me of is I remember, so the people that tend to be attracted to what I do for coaching are entrepreneurial women in their 50s and beyond who are looking to grow their impact and income through some kind of new revenue stream. And the part that I help them with is recognizing that they have 20 or 30 years of building up a network that is there to help them. That while they might feel like a novice at marketing or the tech or promoting themselves in some way, that feels a little uncomfortable and new. They have a lot they're building off of. But I remember a woman who said to me, I don't even know what I like on my pizza. I was home
Yeah.
alone, decided I want pizza, went to call and realized that none of my kids were home. And I didn't know what to put on the pizza because I've always put on the pizza based on who was home.
That's
And that's
interesting.
kind of you're saying, like, now it's my chance to write my
Yeah.
voice. It's
But
like,
what do
oh,
I
what is that?
Yeah. I really felt that strongly, that kind of sense of what you were just saying when COVID hit and I realized I hated marketing. I was a marketer who hated marketing. And I was like, well, I clearly can't go back to work for someone else. I'm very unemployable. So that means I have to pivot this business and figure out what to do and what I'm great at. And I was like, I don't even know what I'm good at. What am I even good at? And I think for me, a lot of the skills that I have are very like relationship oriented and strategic. And those don't necessarily translate to like a deliverable. And there's so much emphasis put on the tangible, the deliverable. What did you do today? What did you produce today? And so if I say I sat around and thought about things all day long, my husband would be like, well, lucky you. Isn't that nice? I'm like, that's very hard work, actually.
It's much easier to just do widgeting, like whatever that widget company tells you to
Yeah.
do, right? So just like follow
Yeah.
the path laid out versus what you're doing, which is you're before you walk into a jungle with your machete to clear the path, you think through the best possible way forward, right? Like, and then you get to work.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you bounced around a bunch of different jobs and you found your
Oh,
way
yeah.
into copywriting. Was college a given for you, or did you skip that?
Yeah. That was very much like, I'm going to college. I didn't know exactly. I thought maybe pre-med for a little bit, but um, I didn't know. I wanted to be a marriage and family therapist for a minute, but then I did a summer internship at a group home for severely emotionally disturbed teenage girls, and I cried every day coming home. It was just devastating, and a little too close to home. I think I was too emotional about it, and I was like, well, clearly I can't do this job, so I don't know what I'm going to do. I ended up being a pomegranate farmer for like 8 years right out of college. My dad had a pomegranate farm and I worked with him on the farm. So it's kind of
Where
a
was
random
that?
beginning. It just down the street here in California.
Wow,
They
I
grow
just
really
saw
well in California.
this incredible video where someone was showing how you, like, cut the top of it off and it was like
I
the
just saw
sim
that on
the
TikTok.
simplest way to open a
Yeah.
pomegranate I've ever seen, and then people were in the comments were like, "Well, pomegranates here in the US are not that big, that's why it won't work." And I was like, "Oh." But it really made me wanna go and buy a pomegranate and, like, try.
They're pretty big here. You can get them.
Well, I think probably by you in California versus here in Pacific, in the Northeast, I
Oh
should
yeah,
say,
maybe
where,
not.
like, we're not really getting the best because 'cause they're being shipped and probably plucked off the
I'll send you some.
yeah, we'll work that out. That was kind of a funny moment. So it sounds like you have, like, a wavy sort of path forward, and when you look back, does it all make sense? Does that broken road
That's
make
the only
a lot
way
of
it
sense?
makes sense.
Mm,
I when I was one of the so when I COVID hit and I was like, everything's falling apart. What do I do? Oh my God. I really dug into the psychology, like my psychology. I did all this personality tests again. I did, discovered the Colby A index. And one of the things I did was a timeline I did my core values and then I did a timeline and looked at all of the things, the job changes, the relationships, all the things. And I was looking for anti-values. Like when this didn't work out, what was offending which value of mine? Like what was going on here? And looking back, the thread that came through it was a lot more obvious than when you're just sitting there going, well, I have bounced around a lot. And there's a lot of shame around that because, I mean,
mm,
especially in my household, my husband's been at the same job for 18 years. He just changed and went to the work for the union he was part of. So it's like steady Eddie over here. And I'm like, bing, 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 bing. But I don't feel bad about the mess anymore. I think that's part of discovering that the way I operate is trial and error. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm always figuring it out. I'm not a planner. I'm a doer. I'm going to do it and then I'm going to see how it worked. And I used to feel really bad about that. And now it just is the way I operate. So
yeah.
very much less apologetic about it.
So, I wanna dig into that, but first I wanna ask you, what were you doing right before COVID? Like,
Digital marketing, like
okay,
content marketing. And I was doing
employ
strategy and
employed?
managing.
private
No,
equity?
no, no, no. I
Oh,
had the
that's
same
right.
LLC that I have now. I was just doing different things in it
Okay.
with clients, servicing clients on a retainer basis.
Yeah. So how did the initial moment of COVID really impact the work you were doing?
Um, I mean, everything slowed down, I think, for everybody. A lot of the businesses that I was working with were brick and mortar at the time that were trying to get online and do more online. So that didn't really slow down at all in that way. People were, help, get online, get in front of people. It was more me. It wasn't the landscape of marketing that shifted. It was more like me sitting down going, oh my. And I think I wasn't working I was not good at what I was doing. I was doing a lot of project management. I have zero execution strengths in my top 10 Clifton strengths, zero execution strengths. So I am not somebody who should be doing project management at all. But my regular coping mechanisms during normal times were working. I was making it work. I was a lot of effort, but I was making it work. But when COVID happened and everything got extra stressful, I think all of that collapsed and I had to face this reality that I wasn't particularly great at what I was doing, which meant there was something I should be doing that I wasn't doing. And that was the rub, was like, what am I supposed to be doing here?
What a great way to reframe that insight, right? Like, and I do think that this was sort of a global pause for
Yeah.
everybody to reflect on, like, am I doing what I'm here to be doing? Is this right? Like, is this where I want to put my energy? Maybe I can do it, but I don't know if I want to do it. Or maybe this isn't whatever it was. Like, I think having a chance to reflect on that, but then taking stock, it sounds like you did a really excellent job taking stock of the strengths you had, what you want to be putting energy into. And I also understand during COVID is when you got diagnosed.
Yeah.
What led to that? Like, how
Me
did
and
you think that
me
was?
and all the other women out there who are watching TikTok.
Ah,
It was TikTok. I was watching a TikTok and it was like, you might not just be a jerk, you might have ADHD. And it was, listing all these little quirks and things that I thought were just personality flaws of mine. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I, did the inventory and I looked and I, looked back in my life again and called my doctor and was like, I don't think it's just anxiety and depression. I think I
mhm.
have ADHD. And he was like, I think that tracks. And I don't look at it like, and then I call my mom and she's like, I don't like labels. Meanwhile, I'm over here going, this is fantastic. I have some context now for why I'm always feeling like the crazy person around here and trying to act normal when really I'm divergent, which is how I look at it. There's such a tiny sliver of what we call normal that we're trying to all fit in this box of. And there's so many different ways to be and think and act and feel. And even though they don't look like what we're supposed to do, I think we should maybe like stop shooting on ourselves so much.
Yeah, can be very helpful to have something be named. I have a kid who's autistic, and when the teacher in preschool so gently approached us about this, and I was like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna want to get testing. Like, we want to get support. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, my wife's gonna be on board, and we both were. We were on the same page, 100%. She was so pleased, relieved, relieved,
Yeah,
relieved is the word because that's not how a lot of parents reacted. And it helped
totally.
me because I've been growing more and more frustrated with his behavior. And as soon as I realized it was just who he was,
Yeah,
I realized I'm the adult. I'm the one who has to stop change. I didn't change my behavior if I want a different result. Like, I'm the one who keeps like doing the same thing, expecting a different result. Like, no, 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 it's on me now. And I have been a much calmer, less frustrated parent since then. And it was even before we had any interventions. It wasn't about interventions. It was just like,
the
oh,
shift,
that's just who you are. I get it. Your brain's is wired like that.
the
You're not
mental
doing this
shift.
maliciously. You're not trying to be whatever, right? Like all
Yeah,
those personality quirks that we can label and make in a negative way can also be a strength because it's like he's super creative, right? There's like all these other ways of looking at it.
exactly.
So
There
I
was
think it's great for you.
He's so lucky to have you because that's such a great, how lucky that he gets to now grow into those strengths instead of trying to, because I think a lot of what happens is you're right. They are strengths. I talked too much as a kid. I talked a lot. I was loud. I was bossy. I was, all those things, right? And messy and unpredictable and inconsistent. And that doesn't necessarily mean those are bad things, but when they get labeled that way, you tamp down those strengths and you try to and it's like a curse. My mom was like, you can do anything you want to do, which is like, so I've been trying to do whatever it was I wanted to do this whole time instead of really leveraging the strengths that came naturally to me. And to wrap this back around to the whole relationship thing, when you're isolating yourself from people and you don't have a really, close network, it's really hard to see those strengths because we mirror these things back to each other. I still wouldn't have a clue about that I had an ability to connect people to each other if two really important women in my life hadn't told me, that's not everybody does that. That's really hard. I was like, what? It is? But that's not something that you see we don't see the great things about ourselves.
That might be something we need to underscore for anyone listening because it's so true. The things that come easily to us, we never appreciate. We
No,
don't think about that as being a value add to anything we do because it
we're
comes
just
naturally
doing
to
it.
us. They're just doing it. We're like living our lives. And when someone else gets to say like, "Wow, it's amazing. I want to be more like you." And you're like, "What?"
Why?
That's cool that you get to bring that forward. Now, when did Ravel Radio and Ravel Collective get started? Is that a recent thing?
It's almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
January 7th is our 2-year birthday.
What led to
Um,
it?
It was a lot of it was I was online, so all the stress of in-person networking was gone thanks to COVID, and I was just connecting with all these interesting women online, and I wanted to connect them all to each other, but it was very time-consuming to do all these email introductions to each other, and I thought, like, "Why don't we all just get in one space?" So I created a container, using Circle. Online, it's decentralized, because I think on Facebook, a lot of times it's hard to be vulnerable when you're scrolling through the feed and there's all this political stuff happening and your family's on there and stuff, and then you're getting in a group trying to be vulnerable, and you have to be able to be vulnerable. So I collected all these women and said, hey, do you want to come in this community and we'll all network together? Because I was looking at how we could be strategic about networking and referrals, because I always got a lot of referrals when I was in fact, for the first 10 years I was in marketing, I didn't even have a website because it was all referral based.
Awesome.
But I was very specific about what I did and who I did it for and stuff like that. So we just put them all in a container and we all started chatting with each other. And it wasn't as much about business as it was just about life.
Hmm. And when did you start to monetize that? Or was that
Um,
initially, or
it was
did you just
about
wait?
8 months in. That chicken egg problem with communities is difficult.
It is. I have to give you a lot of credit that it's still running 2 years in because getting a group going and finding like the heart of a community and people committing to it, not just you, but like those
Yeah.
core members that give back. That's really what keeps it going. That's kudos because it is what you said, chicken and egg is really hard to do. I just shifted. I started a membership group um, like a year and a half plus ago, after running a weekly free No More Bad Zoom virtual happy hour for 2 years. And it was something I just did. And then I switched it to a monthly free event on the 2 year anniversary. And then, so that would be like April or March or April. And then, yeah. And then it was like $10 a month for the first group of people who joined for that first month because they're my inside circle. Then it was $25 a month as like forever. And then I just last month switched it to $100 a month.
Nice.
And the people in the group don't change. Like they're just charging whatever they're paying. But
Yeah.
because the members inside are now so much like, they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is $100 value. I'm like, it's way even more than that. So we added a whole bunch of new programs and now members are stepping up to host member-led activities.
That's
And it's
awesome.
like, we just had this burst of energy. And like you said, it's that chicken and egg. Like I couldn't have out of the gate been like, this is
Right.
$100. Like
Because the value probably wasn't there in the very beginning, or it wasn't proven, right?
it wasn't proven. And the people have to see it, they
Yeah.
have to experience it, and then they have to share it. And when they are sharing it organically, that's when you get this incredible growth. And like you, I'm not on Facebook. Like ours is through a company called Podia.com.
Yeah.
But it's less about the online. It's actually been that we meet weekly, right? It's a virtual Zoom aspect of it, which I want to get back to because you were saying that like the in-person networking was causing angst. It
Oh,
wasn't your jam.
terrible.
And you also mentioned like you're the hoodie wearing, like, I mean, what's funny about the way you're describing yourself, I was thinking how I still don't feel like a grown up. I
I don't
am
either.
49 years old.
Yes. I'm
I'm
43. I'm like, when do we grow up here?
I'm planning my 50th birthday like trip celebration next year, and I'm like, am I dressed appropriately for this occasion?
Yes. So I'm going to New York for the first time ever in like 3 weeks for this, She Leads Media conference, and I'm more stressed about what to wear than anything else about the trip because it's East Coast, it's, like, proper, right? Aren't we proper out there?
So here's the funny part about that. So I'm a member of the National Speakers Association, and I joined in 2015 when I was just like going full time into entrepreneurship. I've been speaking for 5 years, but I was like, this is the thing. And I wore fancy shoes that hurt my feet while walking like football fields between events. And like button down shirts and suits and just like things that probably felt like I was wearing like my dad's clothes kind of thing. Like none of it was me. And then COVID happened. My business took off like in a huge way. I was suddenly a thriving six-figure business owner. And I came back to the next event because I've been going now for like almost 10 years, of next year with 10 years. And I realized I don't need any of these people. I like them, and some of them will refer business to me, but this is not my audience of people who are buying from me. And what they're going to get if they do buy from me is me in a polo shirt, because this is my fancy. So I wore a polo shirt and shorts, and then I realized I'm not going to do that again because it was too cold. So so next time I'm gonna do polo shirt and jeans because that is more my uniform. But like I got rainbow shoes. I'm LGBT, like this is my whole thing. I'm trans. And so I got these like fancy shoes made, custom chucks. And so I was just like
Ooh, I
excited
like
to show off
that.
my custom chucks. And what happens is you find your people. So the other people like who were like me, like I'm not in the exact dress of uniform, but who also were not wearing, were like bucking whatever the trend is.
Yeah.
Honestly, I felt more myself. I felt more like I could show up. So I just want to say, do you like, because the more successful you are, the less you care about those things, and just breathe that into existence.
Part of me wants to show up in a hoodie and flip-flops just because a woman would never be allowed to do that. Like,
Mhm.
my cousin's a pretty successful business guy, and he's always shows up in his flip-flops and his, hoodie to CEO to meetings or whatever, and I'm like, "Man, I could never get away with that." But why not?
Who are you impressing in this space? Because the people
Like,
who
who do I
love your
care?
vibe are going to come and hang out with you.
Yeah, I think that's where my head's at right now.
I'm excited. I really want to hear where this goes because I think this is true for all of us. And the Zoom, in some ways, was such an equalizer
Yeah.
if you found the right places to hang out, if you found people who are organizing, designing really good experiences. One of the things I love about Zoom is breakout rooms. And what it happens, though, I produce virtual events for my clients all the time. And there's always this moment where we go to open up breakout rooms and like a third to half the people flee. And I'm like, wow, it's so weird. And I talked to my wife about it. She goes, yeah, because like in person, you have to figure out who you want to talk to and you have to navigate the room and you have to like approach people and find out if they're going to let you in. But in Zoom, you're sent to a room with specific people with a question. And even she's like, the way you do it with an order of people to go in by alphabet or whatever. She's like, it's so much. She's a shy extrovert. She's like, it's so much easier to network and meet people virtually. Why would people flee? And like, they're not prepared. They don't know to be online on camera. They're like expecting to just listen
Oh.
in or something. So I really think it's more about like expectations and like making sure that we let people know what to expect. So I'm getting curious, like what your experience has been in navigating that, like camera on, camera off. How do I connect with people, breakout rooms, hosting? Like, how do you bring community together? Because you've got people, I imagine, from like all regions.
Yeah. I haven't had anyone in we have, after this call today, we have a small group mastermind, and it's so casual. If like 5 or 6 people show up and we don't want a mastermind, we'll just talk and chat and, whatever. I kind of let them lead, like, what do you guys feel like today? How are we feeling? But haven't had anyone keep their camera off unless they're like, getting up really quick to go do something. But everybody feels, I think, really comfortable just coming as they are. And I explicitly say that too, come as you are, take what you need. It's funny. I get a lot of people like will apologize sometimes, like, oh, sorry, I haven't been, on the calls. I've been so busy or whatever. And I'm like, hey, man, that's fine. Like, if you need it, it's here. If you don't, you're busy. That's awesome. So I think just setting that kind of, like you said, expectation of, we're not expecting you to come in any sort of way that's not authentic to you.
Yeah, I have a line on my like so I still host these nomoreaboutzoom.com like, monthly calls, and it says something like um arrive when you can, leave when you have to. It's like
Yeah.
another one of those things where people think, oh my God, it's 5 minutes past the hour. I can't show up. I'm like, yeah, Like,
Yeah. And
yeah.
I never want anybody like I have a little bit of that. I don't know if it's I don't know like if it's oppositional defiance disorder or what it is, but as soon as someone tells me to do something, I don't want to do it. So I never want anybody to feel like they have to show up somewhere. Like if you would like to join us today, please do so. Otherwise, whatever, we'll
You
be
do you.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that the gatherings that you're describing are so powerful. What I did was I started the Content and Connection Club for all the other Fridays that weren't the first Friday. And that's the club that now we do like co-working and a business book club and like,
Nice.
5-minute member spotlights and whatever else we can. We're just constantly dreaming up new ways to support each other. And there's a core group of people who come all the time. And then there's the people who pay, don't come. And then I'll get a random, like, please cancel. And then I'll write them and be like, okay, but just so you know, like, here's all the stuff you have access to. Do you want, and if you cancel, like, the price is going to jump to this if you ever return. Like, let me know. Like, I can take care of this for you. Oh, well, Robbie, it's on me. I haven't really been paying attention. I'm going to stay and I'm going to try to come to more things this month. Like, okay. Like, I get it. Like, in some ways, we sign up for things and like don't commit, but you get out of these experiences what you give. Like, by showing up, I'm sure the people who come regularly are getting so much more out of that connection. Is there a specific subset of entrepreneurial women that you're pulling from? Like, what are the kind
Yeah.
of work that they're doing? Are they entrepreneurs? Are they in business roles in, large companies? Like, what kind of folks are you attracting?
They're mostly solopreneurs or they have a small team and they're B2B service entrepreneurs. So bookkeepers and marketers and what else? Like HR professionals, consultants. They're all independent. And the idea is that we're a networking community, so we're getting to know each other well enough so that we can be invested in each other enough to stop what we're doing and make the referral. We have to know each other. We have to know that we're good at what we do, and then we have to want to stop what we're doing and take the time to refer someone or send an article that they might want to read or whatever. So I really lead with the relationship part of it because I don't think we refer people we don't like. So it starts with kind of the liking and the knowing the person.
I love that. And how has it gone? What success stories can you share?
One of our members earned 90% of her revenue through referrals last year. And so for like 2022. And then this year, she said 100% of her revenue came from referrals and relationships that she built inside the community. And then one of our gals just published a book, and I got in there, and it was cute because she was like, she wanted to share it with the community, but she didn't want to toot her own horn, and it really is so much more effective when someone else says, look at her. Look what she's doing. This is amazing. So I got in and said, look at Cara Hoosier. She just published Burnt Out to Lit Up. It's a really great book. Everybody should check it out. And we got the whole community together and we were like, let's be on her launch team. Let's read the book. Let's give her Amazon reviews. And she made it to #1 in Amazon. And it was really exciting to be able to help her do that.
That is really cool. That specific outcome that you just described. The referral thing is also amazing. I've self-published or independently published 3 books, and I still don't think of myself as a writer. uh, which talk about identity, right? And when I got to the point where my first draft of my first book was like ready enough to send to an editor, and I was like, wow, this is really going to happen. And writing is not it's gotten better, but it wasn't like my favorite activity. And wait, this is a good book. I want people to read it. So then I stalled the launch timeline and I built a launch plan. And I was like, I want 100 reviews by launch day. And I did this like soft launch and I didn't know what I was doing. I just did everything I could. And I had 150 reviews within a week of the launch.
Good
And
for
I've
you.
since done that 2 more times. So now I'm really like so excited to help other authors figure that stuff out because to me, it's about them tapping into their existing networks, which is what
Yeah.
you helped her do, right?
Yeah.
It's like helping find the people who already know you that want to support you, and fellow authors are such a good place to start, but also who else in your network really needs to hear this message because that's how you get invited on podcasts and shows and like lives and all that other good stuff. So it's amazing how people will commit to working on a book, which is to me a tremendous amount of effort, and then they'll just hit publish. And then it's
Ugh.
like, what?
Well, I was really excited too because she'd kind of been through this, we'd watched her go through the journey. She shows up to the calls, she's invested in the community, and we watched her go through this whole process. And then it was like, it's happening. And I don't think there's a single one of us in the community that doesn't want to write their own books. So we're like, oh my God, she's doing the thing that we want to do. So it's,
Yeah. I
uh,
think that's the other thing I've taken from being part of peer masterminds and being part of the Content Connection Club is that if you are honest about your struggles with people, they'll be there to celebrate your victories. Like,
totally.
it's not tooting your own horn. If you
Yeah.
share the whole journey with people, and not everybody, I don't mean like get on, Facebook and share every moment of your life, but to find that community of people that will really have your back, which it sounds like that's what you've created. It's kudos.
Yeah, I mean, 8 of us or no, 6 of us just went to Mexico a couple weeks ago together. I wanted to go on vacation and I didn't wanna go alone. So I was like, "Hey, guys, I rented a house in Mexico. Who wants to go?" And so there were 6 rooms and we really did know each other after spending time online for that long. And I hadn't met 3 of them in person before, and it was
Unbelievable.
amazing. I mean, I got really sick halfway through and spent 3 days laying in bed, but other than that, everybody got along, everybody was really kind and generous, and just it was amazing. Like, you can meet amazing people online and build actual relationships that translate into in-person relationships.
That's another thing I feel like we have to repeat for listeners because I've
You can
heard
do
so many
it.
people say, "Oh, Zoom, oh, Zoom." And I'm like, let's turn Zoom fatigue to Zoom intrigue because
Ooh, I like
I
that.
also believe, thank you, that I have in like I'm a great networker. I love to meet people. I'm all about going to events, 7 times a night, whatever. But the quality and depth of the relationships I've made in the last 3 years compared to the 5 years before is completely different because of repeat exposure.
Mhm.
Like, it's the number of times a month that I'm able to see people and that they really are with me. Like, we're really supporting each other. This is not the, like, once in a while you see someone at a conference or once in a while you have coffee with someone. This is like sustained conversations as opposed to starting from the beginning all over again every time. That's the magic. And I think coupling that with in person is really great. Now that we're able to spend more
Yeah.
time with each other in person, it's like keeping up in between using any virtual platform that you can. Like even I just got back into using Marco Polo. Are you
Oh,
familiar?
okay, yeah.
Yeah, I have a group of friends that like 2 years ago, they started like "Hey, let's all like share our support around movement and diet and just like being healthier." There's just 3 of us. We've known each other since the first day of 7th grade.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I resurrected the Marco Polo like 2 months ago, and we're in there all the time. And it's even that asynchronous connection can really help.
That's kind of the fun thing too about all the digital options that we have is that it really does trickle into like we're not just in Ravel together. A bunch of us are on Voxer together or WhatsApp. Now the 6 of us have a WhatsApp group from the Mexico trip and we're chatting in that still. And so you create all these kind of little tiny containers where you get more exposure to certain people. And like it's pushing me out of my box. These women are pushing me into new realms like New York. I'm going out there and I think there might be 8 or 9 women all from the Ravel going to support one of our other members who's putting on the conference. And I wouldn't have probably gone to New York because I don't really have any desire to go to New York and it's very, very far and cold. But I want to meet these women. I will get out of my house to meet these people. And I thank them for that.
That's magic right there. Like,
I
I
will leave
remember
my home.
I think that's amazing. Yeah, because you have a relationship with them. It goes deeper than like the effort is worth it because
Yeah,
because you really know them. So
totally.
when you think about nurturing that extended network, you of course you're going to stay in touch with the people closest to you. But you think about that second and third layers and tiers out, the people that you may not see as frequently. Maybe you met them at a conference. Maybe you worked with them 5 years ago. These are people you enjoy them; they enjoy you. That's of course a given in this context. How do you think about like nurturing those connections? Any habits, philosophies, practices for staying in touch?
I have a weird practice that relates to networking in a way that maybe you wouldn't think, but mindfulness meditation, even 5 minutes, like a couple times a week, helps me catch because our brain's always making connections. And somebody that I don't see very often, I might see an article or something that makes me think of that person just for a split second, but I might not catch that thought if I'm not in tune with the thoughts that are all running through my head. So if I can catch that thought, I can be the random person who sends them an article and touches base and says, "Hey, this made me think of you." So I think that helps a lot.
I really appreciate that. I have a friend, actually, I can think of a couple people who really been playing with quantum,
Ah,
and
like the Joe
um,
Dispenza stuff.
yeah, yeah. So I was thinking about how like you also could just like spend a few minutes thinking about them and see whether they end up reaching back out to you. And
That stuff's kind of wild. There's something there.
yeah, yeah. So that's cool. I'll think some resources I can put in the show notes about that stuff. I've got a book I can think of and all that. So this has really been exciting to talk to you about your journey. What's your current focus right now as you built a new business? It sounds like you moved away from the marketing. What is it you're really doing now to create value in the world?
I'm just working on the membership for
Hmm.
Ravel, bringing new members in when it makes sense. And then I'm doing some consulting too around people who want to build communities and want to get some help with that. And also networking strategies. A lot of women feel really uncomfortable networking still. And I think we got to take that word back and, strip off the ick. And it's relationships. It's not gross. It's good.
So one of my first blog posts and first podcast episodes titled "When Will Women Win the Right to Pockets?" So I would say I did this presentation for like 11 years. I'd ask the audience, when do women win the right to vote in the US? And people would generally know, oh, 1919 went to effect 1920. And I said, okay, when are they going to win the right to pockets? And then I'd hold up my phone, which is enormous, and I'd say, if you're a woman and your pocket only holds a chapstick, raise your hand. So
It's
yeah,
That's a thing.
as a thing.
Why do you think we get so excited when our dresses have pockets?
I agree. More and more designers are catching on. There were moments where my like 3-year-old had more pockets than my wife did. Like that's not an issue, right? So yes, I think that I've attracted a lot of women in my audience because for years I've named that. I'm like, I was the only person wearing a jacket at one event. I was a keynote at a women's leadership conference, and I said, like, why is the temperature set for my comfort?
Ooh.
Like, this is a room full of people here. I'm the one wearing a suit jacket, which I didn't really love, right? Because it wasn't my thing, but I was playing the part. Um,
Pre-polo.
and then I was like, huh, like, so
That's
this is, I
interesting.
mean, this is the stuff that I think is so interesting to name. I'm excited about you going to New York and just being your own self and like giving people permission. I actually got myself psyched into doing what I wanted to do with the shorts because there was a woman in the LGBT Rainbow Speakers group for NSA that asked, like, this is my first time. This is what I look like. Took a picture. She's like, am I going to fit in? Like, how am I, like, what is this space going to be like? Colorful, all from hair to shoes. And then we all tagged like one other person who's super colorful. And then she posted her outfit. And then I was like, yeah, I'm going to be wearing my funky shoes. And like, I was like my funk is maybe not head to toe, but like, I was like, I can show up my feet, like,
Yeah.
so it was just like, oh, I'm going to help create more space for her to be comfortable. That actually was an interesting motivating factor. So I don't know if that helps you, but if you
That
announce to your
does.
group that I'm going to be me, you be you, and we're all going to support each other in that, then maybe people aren't going to be like putting on pantyhose if they don't want to, you know?
Ooh, pantyhose. And New York might be a little cold for flip-flops, but I think I might wear my Vans.
There you go. Yeah. Get some custom ones. All right.
Ooh.
I know I got some custom, my first pair ever of Chucks, and they're super cool. So I'm about to get to my favorite wrap-up question, but first we're going to pause for a quick word from our sponsor. Okay, so here's my wrap-up question. We are going to stay in touch, Cara. I'm so excited to find out
100%.
what happens with you and your community. Your people are totally like my kind of people. I love that you're supporting all the people that support the businesses that I support. So I feel like there's some great synergy we're going to have to talk about because I don't have all those people, and some of my people might be your people. This
Yeah.
is really interesting. But let's say it's a year from now, and we're reflecting back on your year and everything that's happened. What are we going to be celebrating? What are we going to be toasting? What are you most looking forward to in the year ahead?
I love this question. We're going to be celebrating that I started speaking. I want to do some speaking. This is like the next step in taking back that, little girl who would not have hesitated.
I love it. I'm going to now give a shout out to my friend Bobby Carlton, who created
Ooh.
Innovation Women. And I'm going to name the link. It's robbiesamuels.com/join IW for my affiliate link to send you into her community. You pay $125 a year. You get a membership profile on her website. People who are looking for speakers will look there, but she also curates a whole call for proposals list that she sends out. So if you're like wanting to pitch yourself to conferences, and there's a weekly and bi-monthly meetings for people to come to, plus other events and things they do. Super supportive community, and it's really focusing on getting diverse voices, underrepresented diverse voices on stages with a focus on women, but all underrepresented diverse voices. And it's for all people, including men who are secure enough to be the only guy in the room, is the way she describes it. And I'm a member and I love this space. I try to go to their events every week. So that would be a cool way for you to find your footing as you're navigating your way into this world of speaking.
I've actually been a member for a year already, and I have been like kind of on the periphery paying attention to it. But I think now that you've said all that, I think I should probably start paying more attention and
Yeah,
actually like get involved.
And you're West Coast, so they have 2 events that are more West Coast friendly because they're
On
every
Friday.
Friday is like, 5:45 in the morning for you. It's early for me, and I'm on the East Coast.
Yeah, that's early.
Yeah, so, but they have 2 others that are 9:00, West Coast. So, yeah, so awesome. Definitely, I'll put links in the show notes to all the things we've talked about,
Awesome.
really including the book you mentioned earlier from your friend. So, how can people find you and follow your work?
I love connecting with people on LinkedIn and on ravelcollective.com also. So those are probably the 2 places that are easiest to find me.
Fantastic. We'll put that link and your Instagram. I see I've got your podcast here, carasteinmann.com. We'll put all the links in the show notes at ontheschmooze.com. Cara, thank you
Awesome.
so much for joining us. This has been
Thank
great.
you.